The genre of epic combines poetic description and heroic speeches. Eloquent speeches fit for heroic characters, and stirring poetic descriptions dominated by similes. Similes, the figure of speech where things are like something, as if something, akin to something like that, rather than metaphor, which is described as that. One thing is described as another, rather than as like another thing. Satan certainly has heroic speeches, as does Adam, who's more plausibly the Satan is the epic hero you in terms we expect epic heroes to be. Adam is arguably the realer epic hero here, who makes one bad decision for one good reason. And Eve gets the blame. We'll talk more about Eve in other videos. I want to look in book one in ways that Satan is described. Satan is described as a classical warrior. All of Milton's angels are like classical warriors. They get the same armor, they get the same spears. When you have illustrations from the 17th and 18th century, they tend to be tricked out like that. They've got good old-fashioned antique Greek or Roman armor. They're suited up for the Trojan War well in advance. Let's turn to book one, to page 18 if you have our edition, about line 283. Satan's been lying on the lake of fire, kind of getting it together after he's been dropped from heaven. He's lying on the lake of fire. He's spoken to Beelzebub. Beelzebub said, hey, it's time to get the troops together. We have some descriptions of the troops, of those fallen angels on the lake of fire. But first we have some descriptions of Satan himself and his armaments, which I would like to read to you now. Let's take them in order. He scarce had ceased when the superior fiend was moving toward the shore, his ponderous shield, ethereal temper, massy, large, and round, behind him cast. The broad circumference hung on his shoulders like the moon, whose orb through optic glass the Tuscan artist views at evening from the top of Fiesole, or in Valdarno to descry new lands, rivers, or mountains in her spotty globe. We stop there. That's one sentence. It's an epic simile that describes something. The simile goes on and becomes extended. And we went a long way. First of all, it's pretty simple. Like, Satan's shield is like the moon. It is as large as the moon. Satan and the other fallen angels are enormous until the end of book one, where they shrink themselves down to snake themselves into their capital, Pandemonium. Yes, Milton invented the word pandemonium. It's the city of all demons, here in book one. His ponderous shield, ethereal temper, massy large armor behind him cast, the broad circumference hung on his shoulders like the moon. The moon whose orb through optic glass the Tuscan artist views. Who is that Tuscan artist? Footnote fans, it's Galileo. I'll come back to that. At evening, from the top of Fiesole, or in Valdarno to descry new lands, rivers, or mountains in her spotty globe. So we move from the image, like Miltonic epic similes are kind of multi-packs. You get 3, 4, 5 images for the price of one. It hangs on his back like the moon whose orb. Then we have a picture of Galileo on a hilltop in northern Italy looking at the moon. And then to descry new lands, rivers, or mountains in her spotty globe. Oh, we're like, okay, the geography of the moon, the exploration. We move to, this becomes a description of exploring new lands. A lot of things are happening here. Describing the shield is a classic thing. Homer describes Achilles' shield. It's a famous description of Achilles' shield. It goes on much longer even than this. Satan is implicitly compared in turn to all of the great epic heroes. He is compared to Achilles. He is compared to Odysseus, the wily and persuasive Odysseus. Before book two, he's gonna really be like Odysseus. He's compared to Aeneas, who is the leader of a group of defeated warriors who are looking to found a new empire. Aeneas founds kind of proto-Rome in Italy. Satan is founding hell in hell. not as good, really. Um, but a longer life. I mean, a longer kind of imperial span. It's also the fact that we get a bunch of Italian references here ties Satan and the fallen angels to Aeneas. These people are, after all, pagans. The all those epic heroes are, of course, pre-Christian heroes, and therefore pagan heroes. They were polytheists who worshipped Zeus, aka Jupiter. To Milton, they're not the final word. They can't be because they're not Christians, and Satan can't be the final word in epic heroism because he's the devil. What's Galileo doing here? How far in the historical past is Galileo when this poem is written? Milton had met Galileo personally, pretty sure, or he seems to have possibly met Galileo. Galileo here represents the height of scientific modernity. The Copernican revolution isn't totally over, or at least Milton doesn't think so. Milton's a poetry guy, not a scientist. So let's just say in one of the books you're not reading, Adam asks a friendly archangel Raphael, "Hey, what's the deal with the sun and the planets and the movement around what moves around what in the solar and what moves around what in the heavens?" And, and Raphael ducks the question. He's like, "Don't ask me. No, let's think about more important things than astronomy," which is there because Milton doesn't want to take a controversial stand on astronomy, on whether the Earth goes around the sun or vice versa. Milton ain't shy about controversy, you may have noticed. Absolutely not. He's a controversialist. He's a polemicist. But he's going to stay away from that because it's too fresh. All of this digression is to say Galileo is cutting edge science. He is the newest of the new. So what is happening here? Satan's shield, which is it's an archaic simile, the description, like, oh, we're describing Satan and his shield as if back in the ancient days of Homer, thousands of years before Milton. Historically set, this poem is set kind of before the beginning of human history, all the way back really in the beginning when the creation of the earth, we'll find in book 2, is still just a rumor. But there's a simile in it, a comparison to the newest high-tech thing. If we were setting a kind of epic poem in the beginning of time, just as the earth cooled, and we discussed, I don't know what, Elon Musk's newest gadget, right? Whatever Stephen Hawking was up to just before he died, things happening in like a superconducting super collider with in the Large Hadron Collider, that would be the kind of metaphor we're seeing here. Milton wants to have a universal scope, and that's universal in time as well as space. He wants to bring us into a godlike perspective, capital G godlike perspective, God's perspective, where the future is already predicted, has already happened. Remember, Milton believes in predestination. To God, the Galileo thing hasn't happened for Satan yet, but God knows Galileo's coming. He knows everything that's coming. Milton would have had an even more up-to-date reference if he could. He's gone right up to his moment. Okay, and this is this example, like where Galileo gets into our poem about ancient history when, like, you know, on like, I don't know, day 2, book of Genesis, day 3. That is a famous reference, a very strange thing. Let's keep going. His spear, this is Satan's spear. Now we've done the shield, let's do the spear. His spear, to equal which the tallest pine hewn on Norwegian hills to be the mast of some great admiral were but a wand. He walked with his support on easy steps over the burning marl, not like those steps on heaven's azure, and the torrid climbs smote on him sore besides, vaulted with fire. Okay, he's using his spear as a crutch. He's walking the lake of fire. It's not like those steps on heaven's azure, not like those steps on blue of heaven. This is not like walking heaven. And he's in pain. Satan's really in pain, which is a new experience to him since he started the war in heaven. He hadn't felt pain before. In book 4, he'll say to Gabriel, "Hi, you don't even understand what pain is. You lack my experience." 1 second. We're about to have a guest. Okay. So But I want to point out that description, it's a trick Milton uses again and again to try to get the vastness of scale he wants for his epic. Satan's spear is first compared to be the tallest pine hewn on Norwegian hills to be the mast of some great admiral. Admiral here is a ship, a flagship, the ship an admiral would have. First, he's like, okay, what's the spear like? Imagine the tallest Norwegian pine that's going to be cut down to be the mast of an enormous warship, right? Big, really big. Those who don't know about the age of sail, to make those big masts, you need a tree that size. You can't make it from you can't put pieces together. You need a humongous tree. Satan's spear is like that humongous tree? No. Compared to which, that tree were but a wand. Milton keeps making us think of something big and then says, oh, it's dwarfed by something, by the actual size. Think of, okay, picture the biggest tree you can possibly think of. Right, okay. Compared to compared to Satan's spear, that enormous tree, it's a tiny little stick. That's all it is. It's a change of scale of reference, which he does over and over again. Look for it in the rest of the poem. And then here comes a really elaborate deluxe multi-pack epic simile. It's coming partway through the sentence. Nevertheless, he so endured, till on the beach of that inflamed sea he stood and called his legions, angel forms who lay entranced, thick as autumnal leaves that strew the brooks in Vallombrosa, where the Etrurian shades high overarched embower, or scattered sedge afloat, when the fierce winds Orion armed hath vexed the Red Sea coast, whose waves o'erthrew Busiris and his Memphian chivalry, while with perfidious hatred they pursued the sojourners of Goshen, who beheld from the safe shore their floating carcasses and broken chariot wheels, so thick bestrewn, abject and lost lay these, covering the flood, under amazement of their hideous change. Let me walk through that. First, the fallen angels are compared to fallen leaves. This is classic. It happens again and again. Your footnote in various epics, your footnote points out it's especially from Dante. And Vallombrosa, Etrurian shades, makes it Tuscany, kind of like the Tuscan. We haven't gone so far from the Tuscan artist Galileo. Dante is a Florentine. He is from Tuscany. In Vallombrosa with the Etrurian shades high over Rutschenberg. Okay, they're like, now first we're going to imagine the lake of fire. Imagine it covered with fallen angels, and they're thick as autumn leaves on a shady brook in northern Italy. It's oddly nice, isn't it? This is the thing. Milton's similes keep shifting around. Something bad or starts being compared to something good, or something good starts being compared to something bad, and then he will flip it around and do something else with it. First, they're like fallen leaves in Vallombrosa. That's the Valley of Shades. Oh, that's okay. Okay, though they're in the Valley of Shades. Valley of Shades, Valley of Darkness. You make the connection yourself. Or scattered sedge afloat, or kind of a scattered seaweed, afloat, when the fierce winds Orion armed hath vexed the Red Sea coast. Now they're the scattered sedge and the Red Sea. The Red Sea, here's the next connection. The Red Sea, which in the book of Exodus, in the book of Exodus, Moses leads the sojourners of Goshen, the Israelites, escaping from Egypt through the bottom of the Red Sea. God closes it back up again, whose waves are through Busiris and his Memphian chivalry. That would be Pharaoh and his charioteers, Memphian chivalry, the horseback soldiers from Memphis, great city of Egypt. Busiris here would be Pharaoh. While there, with perfidious hatred, they pursued the sojourners of Goshen. Okay, we move from like the leaves in Italy. Sounds nice. It's like vacation land. It's great. Your tourist, bring your tourist dollars to northern Italy. See the fallen autumn leaves in the shady brooks. To the Red Sea after a terrible storm, then the Red Sea where Pharaoh and his charioteers and his army drowned. Sojourners of Goshen. While chasing the sojourners of Goshen, who beheld from the safe shore their floating carcasses and broken chariot wheels. So thick bestrewn, abject and lost lay these, covering the flood. Now the image has spun all the way around till we see the sojourners of Goshen, Moses and his Hebrews, standing on the safe shore, the eastern shore of the Red Sea, looking back at the bodies and broken chariot wheels of Pharaoh's army floating in the Red Sea. And that is compared back to the fallen angels on the lake of fire. That's a long way around. It's a kind of complicated triple play. The fallen angels to the fallen leaves to the stuff on to the storm on the Red Sea to Pharaoh and his army broken and floating, drowned in the Red Sea, and back to the fallen angels. That's complicated and elaborate, and there are different moral levels to moral associations with each of those comparisons. Let's do one last one. Further down, Satan then speaks to them. Actually, I'm going to do Satan's speech and then one more epic simile. This Satan's speech also includes his own descriptive abilities. He called so loud that all the hollow deep of hell resounded. Princes, potentates, warriors, the flower of heaven, once yours, now lost. Once yours, now lost is complicated. It used to be theirs and now they've lost it because it was theirs before they were rebels. But Satan's phrasing deceptively makes it sound like they'd actually won heaven before they lost it, which at no point have they done. If such astonishment as this can seize eternal spirits, or have ye chosen this place after the toil of battle to repose your wearied virtue for the ease you find to slumber here as in the vales of heaven? That would be irony. Nobody is feeling easy here in this horrible place, which is torture to be in. Or in this abject posture have ye sworn to adore the conqueror, who now beholds cherub and seraph rolling in the flood, with scattered arms and ensigns, till anon his swift pursuers from heaven gates discern the advantage, and descending tread down on us thus drooping, or with linked thunderbolts transfix us to the bottom of this gulf. Awake, arise, or be forever fallen. Satan too sees his army lying confused with the pennants and the weapons strewn everywhere, that they're stunned, that they're amazed. He calls to them, he works in their guild, here are you? Or are you here? He's a good drill sergeant. Or are you here because you love God, because you're giving up? Is that what it is? Or are you just waiting here to get lightning, transfixed down to the bottom of this with a lightning bolt? Which is it? And then this line, which would be great in a human hero, he could do human heroism very well in our fallen world, but is self-defeating because he's Satan. Awake, arise, or be forever fallen. The problem with that command is the or. It's awake, arise. They're going to be forever fallen no matter what they do. They can awake. They could really just nap there. They could have a little siesta time. It's fine. Or not fine, but how could it be worse? Book 2 is about the devils trying to find various ways to rationalize their step forward, or how to get around the fundamental facts that are so deeply inconvenient to them. Satan, who's very good with words, who can phrase things deceptively, who's a master at phrasing things so he's a great equivocator. He doesn't technically lie, but the way he says it makes it sound very different from what it literally is. Awake, arise, or be forever fallen. Once in a while, he's implying there that there's a choice to not be fallen. They heard and were abashed, and up they sprung upon the wing, as when men want to watch on duty, sleeping found by whom they dread. I want to put in there, here's a simile. They're like guardsmen who've fallen asleep in a human army who are caught by someone whom they dread, whom they fear. Notice here, whom they dread is Satan. That this relationship is fraught with fear. They fear him. They don't love him. They fear him. They're in hell. These are a lot of negative emotions. Later, Milton will say, hey, look, when they fell, these spirits have not lost all of their virtues. They just lost the most important ones. They still show some good traits. But They're fundamentally, all their emotional relationships are negative, are hostile. Rouse and as when men want to watch on duty, sleeping found by them in dread, rouse and bestir themselves ere well awake, nor did they not perceive the evil plight in which they were, or the fierce pains not feel. Milton loves the double negative. They did not perceive, they did not feel, they felt, they definitely felt. Yet to their general's voice they soon obeyed innumerable. As when the potent rod of Amram's son in Egypt's evil day waved round the coast upcalled a pitchy cloud of locusts, warping on the eastern wind, that o'er the realm of impious Pharaoh hung like night and darkened all the land of Nile, so numberless were those bad angels seen, hovering on wing under the cope of hell. Twixt upper, nether, and surrounding fires, till as a signal given, the uplifted spear of their great Sultan waving to direct their course in even balance, down they light on the firm brimstone and fill all the plain. A multitude, like which the populous north poured never from her frozen loins, to pass Rhine or the Danube, when her barbarous sons came like a deluge on the south and spread beneath Gibraltar to the Libyan sands. Another massive, long Miltonic sentence. What are the fallen angels described as there? Let's start with the last one. They are described as like the barbarous sons who flood from the north across the Danube, the Germanic barbarian invaders from the north who destroy the Roman Empire. Okay, they're the destroyers of an empire here. They're barbarous, um, spreading into the south. Okay, but before that, they're like locusts. Specifically, they're like a plague of locusts. Very specifically, they're like a plague of locusts called up by Amram's son. That would be Moses. Here, Satan is doing something Satan holding his spear is compared, surprisingly, to Moses raising his staff, again in the book of Exodus. In Egypt's evil day, waved round the coast up called a pitchy cloud of locusts, warping on the eastern wind, that o'er the realm of impious Pharaoh hung like night and darkened all the lands of Nile. So they're like a cloud of locusts coming up from the eastern wind, warping on the eastern wind, and covering the sky like a cloud, making a swarm of locusts that make the day into night. Locusts are not a positive reference. They are a sign in Moses brings them as a sign of God's wrath on godless Pharaoh. And they're bringing Egypt's evil day. They're bringing a disaster. They're turning day to night. This is how these fallen angels. Well, they are reminiscent of that. They are a plague. They have come to make night, to make day into night, to bring darkness where light would be, to punish. They are scourges. Milton does this over and over again. On the final, you'll get a chance to read at least one of these epic similes. These long, meandering similes are part of how Milton works and part of how he asks us to imagine the universe he describes and the universe around us.